Best of our / entitled parents episode 18. So a little backstory. Last week my dad took me to Applebee's for dinner before we went to see a movie. Cast me, really? M. Entitled Mom Sick. Said innocent kid AE. Applebee's employee W. Waiter D. Dad C. Cop. So me and D pull into Applebee's, we get in and are greeted and seated by AE, we talk and then we order our food. D got a steak and I got shrimp. I realize that near a Karen hair and all. I inform D and then explain this subreddit to him. He calmly tells me not to worry. So our food comes and as we eat we hear M scream WH at the fuck is T. His W comes over to see what's going on and to inform M to watch her language as this took place at prime time so families with children were present. M explains how she got the wrong food. I text my dad. I didn't wanted to say it out loud as I didn't want to get involved. That it's funny how he thought nothing was going to happen. We realize that it is now dead silent with everybody's eyes fixed on the scenario. M realizes that now she has everybody's attention. Time for the grand finale, so she takes her plate as if to give it to W. Instead she throws the plate. W dodges it, just barely. It hits the wall shattering and a piece of the glass goes into a nearby W's arm. Not fully but halfway. The room is filled with a collective gasp. Somebody called the police, so 15 minutes later we hear sirens. The station was only about 20 miles of the restaurant. C shows up and immediately arrests him. She is arrested for damage to property, assault, and child abuse. Sick was covered in bruises and when asked about them told C. Paramedics arrived to treat the W. Their arm situation evolved into a big fucking problem. Sick is taken into CPS since he had nowhere else to go. TL. Doctor, it's basically the title. Thank you. Next. Note, I'm from the UK, so if any ages / terminology for anything seems off to you, that's why. TL. Doctor at the end. Full backstory. From ages 4-10 I had a group of friends who all lived on my cul-de-sac. All our parents were friends and we were very close. Big sleepovers together, Boy Scouts, etc. However, when I turned 11 and went off to high school, I was forced to make new friends seeing as none of the people from my street went to the same one as me. Needless to say, we drifted apart. The problem with this was just before starting HS. At the height of our friendship, my mother had planned a holiday with Fiona and her son, who we'll call Mike, for 14 months in advance. It was a non-refundable trip, and seeing as both our mothers were single parents, it wasn't like they had cash to burn. So, instead of wasting the holiday due to a little awkwardness, we decided to go ahead with the 2 weeks in Gran Canaria and use that time to revitalize our friendships. The changes that occur from 11 to 13 are obviously drastic. Still, I was optimistic about the whole thing. I kind of missed Mike and was curious to see what he was like. With all that in mind, here we go. Mike and Fiona stayed over at our house the night before the holiday and Mike and I got reacquainted very quickly. One thing I noticed was how he hadn't changed at all. Everyone I knew was sliding into the zeros emo / mosher / goth culture, but Mike still looked like his mum dressed him. And he didn't seem too interested in talking about music, either. I can't quite describe it properly, but he just didn't seem like a teenager. He seemed like the 11-year-old boy I last spoke with. But I didn't think too much of it. You don't really need many things in common with someone when you're going to a resort with a water park across the road, right? So, we are at the airport and after going through security, etc., my mother lets me off my metaphorical leash and tells me to go eat wherever I want / gives me a time to meet back with her at a cafe. I ask Mike if he's going to come with me to a burger place and he looks at Fiona, who she shakes her head side to side. She doesn't say anything, but there's an awkward few seconds where I look between her and my mum just kind of shrugs. Me to Fiona, it's only around the corner. We can bring the food back here. Fiona, and what if something happens? I think it's best if Mike stays with me. My mum goes to say something to Fiona but Fiona quickly shuts her down with a firm no. Anyway, I go and get myself a meal with the loose change my mum gave me, and since I felt kind of weird about everything, I bought Mike a large meal with my own money. I go back to everyone and hand the meal over to Mike, and, once again, he looks to his mum who sighs. Fiona, what's this? Me, cheeseburger meal. Fiona to Mike, absolutely not. Throw it away. I don't want that stuff anywhere near you. There's another long pause and suddenly I feel guilty for doing what I assumed was a nice thing. I was also a little pissed that I'd spent money on that meal, but my mum is a vegetarian and I couldn't eat 2 meals, so whatever. I proceed to sit next to my mum and she reassures me I didn't do anything wrong. There was some notable tension in the air, and we continue with our trip. Just before we get on the plane, Mike mentioned something about wanting the window seat to Fiona, so Fiona suddenly grabs me at the gate by my wrist and tells me to let Mike on first so there are no arguments over it. Again, this pissed me off as I would have happily let him have it had he asked. I let my mum know that Fiona was starting to annoy me as we got on the plane, but my mum said Fiona was probably stressed from traveling and it'd be fine once we got there. The next thing I know we're in the air, and after 5 minutes of staring at his phone, not out of the window, Mike falls asleep. My mum and Fiona are behind us. Fiona is reading a book with her headphones in, ignoring my mum. Being the extrovert that my mum is, and easily bored, it didn't take her long to start chatting with a couple who were in the next aisle. They also happened to be staying at the same resort, and had 4 kids of their own who were all early mid-teens. Those kids were in the seats next to Mike and I, so, naturally, I strike up a conversation with them and we all become fast friends. This was kind of a tradition seeing as I'm an only child / introverted, so my mum always made friends with other parents with kids for me to talk to. Several times during this bonding experience, Fiona would pull her headphones out and ask my mum to keep it down because she couldn't focus on her book or tap me on the shoulder and make a shhh. I'd gesture through the gaps in the seats because she didn't want me waking up Mike. In the middle of the day, she even asked me why I couldn't go to sleep too, and when I said I wasn't tired she rolled her eyes at me. I was still a little pissed at her, so I pretty much ignored this. Before we land, my mum makes plans to meet her new friends at the resort bar later that night, and I make plans to meet their kids at the same time. Of course I'd be bringing Mike along, too. The flight from the UK to Gran Canaria is only around 4 hours, and we were arriving at midday, so jet lag wasn't going to be an issue. If anything, my mum and I were pretty buzzed. Fiona, on the other hand, was not. The room we got was a twin family room, 2 double beds and a pull-out sofa, as it was cheaper than getting 2 double rooms and let us bump our trip from 10 days to 14. I guess we assumed that Fiona and Mike wouldn't want to spend the first night at the resort cramped up in the room, but the moment my mum told Fiona that we made plans to go out, she got angry. Also, she insisted Mike sleep in her bed, rather than Mike and I share the sofa bed and our mums get a double bed each. Not a huge deal, just thought it was odd. Fiona, and what time will you be coming back? I don't want to be woken up after having flown all day again. 4 hours. On a full night's rest. My mum, well, why don't you come with us? I thought you'd want to check the place out. Fiona, as if my mum is an idiot, because I'm tired. Honestly, it'll hit you the moment you go out tonight, so you might as well just stay and get a good night's rest. My mum, I don't want to be stuck in the room all night. Come on, let's go have a drink and see what's on. Fiona, no, this is my holiday, and I'm going to do things at my pace. The holiday was split 50/50. My mum and I decided to go anyway, and when the time came to leave the room, I noticed Mike sat on the edge of his mum's bed sulking. He obviously wanted to come with us rather than stay in the room as there were arcade machines, games, music, and a show going on right outside. Me to Mike, why don't you come with us? Once again, Mike looks to his mum, who does her trademark sigh. Fiona to me, he's tired. Me to Mike, do you want to come, or do you want to go to sleep? Fiona shoots up, seemingly offended. Don't ignore me. I just told you he's tired. At this point, my teenage angst was boiling over. I'd spoken back to people for far less and had only bitten my tongue when she grabbed my wrist because I didn't want the holiday to be awkward. Thankfully, my mum could see that I was about to go off and stepped in. My mum to Fiona, I'll watch Mike. Don't worry, and we'll be back by 11. Fiona pauses a moment, then says 10:30. So, we go out and have a great time. Mike was a tad awkward around the other teens, but I made sure to keep him included in everything. I even shared some money with him and told him to pay for a round of games on some of the machines to break the ice with the other kids. We got in at midnight, but Fiona was sound asleep and she didn't have anything to say when she woke up. until breakfast. At the buffet, after Fiona spends way too much time arguing with the waiters about wanting more options, Mike let slip that we went to the arcade with the other kids and got back to the room at midnight. The eldest of the teens, who was 16, I think, had one beer over the course of the night. He does this rather innocently in conversation with me, excitedly recounting the events as our mums chat, but Fiona's mouth drops the second she overhears. She flips out. She tells my mum she endangered her son by letting him wander off alone, in a group of 6, in a resort with security and adult supervision inside the little arcade that was basically attached to the main lobby, and she makes it clear he isn't to leave her side for the rest of the trip. If she doesn't go, he can't. End of story. After another tense moment, both my mum and I apologized. My mum did try to see it from her perspective, and they seemed to reconcile by dinner. Then, as we're all lounging by the pool before the sun sets, the siblings come up to Mike and I and invite us to go back to the arcade with them. I immediately say yes, but Fiona makes it clear she isn't moving, which means Mike can't go. At this point, I'm done with Fiona, but I take a moment to look at Mike, who is obviously upset, and I tell the other kids I'd catch them later that night at the arcade. Em seemed to have opinions about this too, saying something like playing games that much isn't good for you, but I ignored her. I then invite Mike into the pool with me, seeing as there isn't anything else to do, and Fiona has a problem with this too because it's too late, and we'll be eating soon. Yes, she controlled when all 4 of us ate. If my mother or I tried to sneak off for a snack, she'd complain that we'd be ruining our appetite for the dinner we had to have as a collective every night. I spent the rest of the day bored out of my mind with Mike, who, TBH, wasn't much fun. Night comes around again and Fiona comes out this time, but she sits at the bar and still won't let Mike leave her side, meaning he has to sit next to her and watch her get drunk on wine, but even that has its drama. We'd gone to an all-inclusive again, for money reasons, and they usually allow you to drink alcohol for free so long as it's ours. If you want anything branded, or a cocktail, you pay. Fiona didn't seem to like this, and continually complained that the house wine tasted of piss. Quite loudly, especially when the barman was refilling her glass. After listening to her ramble for 20 minutes, I was done. I wanted to go have fun with the other teens regardless if Mike could come or not, so after I speak with my mum, she insists I not feel guilty about leaving Mike as that was on Fiona. She tells me it's my holiday, too, and I should do what I want to have a good time. So, that's what I do. For the next 5 or 6 days, I spend pretty much every second with the other kids. But I always invited Mike. I asked him and his mother every day if he wanted/could come with me, and she said no every time. I'd even ask several times if I kept running into them, but then Fiona would just get annoyed at me for bothering her. I just wanted to make it clear that Mike was more than welcome to hang out with us. This all came to a head by the time Saturday rolled around. There was some deal with the resort to get a free day pass at the water park across the street if you booked a certain package, which we had. My mum and I had asked Fiona every day which day she wanted to go to the water park, as we wanted to spend the entire day there and get our money's worth, but she never seemed interested. So, when the other family with the 14 said they were going that Saturday, I asked if I could go with them instead. Em took issue with this. Fiona to me, before my mother has replied, "No, you should come with us. We're on holiday together, you know." Me, "Well, do you want to go today?" Fiona, "No, not today. I don't want to go today." Me, "Okay, well I do want to go today." Fiona, "You should wait until Mike can go. Otherwise what was the point in coming together?" Me, "Then let him come with us." Fiona, I said, "Number, a little patience wouldn't kill you." Me, sarcastically, "This is my holiday, and I'm going to do things at my pace." Tensions are obviously rising again, so my mum says that I can go today and that she'll give me her pass when Mike/Fiona go, so Mike will still have a friend to go with. I pull Mike aside before I head off with the other family and ask him to convince Fiona to let him come, and the other kids' parents even offer to speak with her, saying they'll keep an eye on Mike, but nothing worked. She kept saying no and was very rude to the other parents. I don't recall the conversation very well, but it was something along the lines of, "For all I know you're a family of serial killers, so please refrain from talking to me or my child. The family weren't impressed. So, I go, I have a fantastic time, and I get back to the room at around 7 p.m, shortly after the park closed. Once I've finished getting changed, Mike and Fiona enter. Fiona to me, did you have a good time with your little friends? Me, yes. Fiona, really? 'Cause I thought I saw you earlier on your own by the pool. Thought they might have ditched you. Me, baffled, no, I was at the park all day. Did you have a good time reading your book? Fiona just grunts at me and makes her way to her bed. Me to Mike, I wish you'd been there. Kieran, one of the other teens, did a backflip off a diving board. It was cool. Fiona, under her breath, mocking me, it was cool. By this point, I was super irritated with her. This woman in her late 30s had been treating her teenage son like a baby the entire holiday. She'd complained that all the all-inclusive food/drinks were crap whenever we had meals together, making it impossible to enjoy whatever time I spent in her company. And, now she was making fun of me. I'd had enough. Me to Fiona, is there a problem? Fiona mumbles something. Me, because if there's a problem, I think you should just say it so we can get on with our holiday. Before she even turns around, Fiona launches into a tirade about how I'm a spoiled, selfish brat that has abandoned her son and ruined his holiday. In her mind, his sulking and being bored is down to me not sulking and being bored with him. She tells me I've been dragged up, not brought up, and that my mother should have done a better job. When I try to reason with her, which, TBH, only lasted 5 seconds because I was getting very angry, and ask what's the harm in Mike spending some time people our own age, she goes off about drugs and alcohol and abduction and foreign rapists and all sorts. Like, I get you want your 13-year-old to stay safe, but everywhere we went was heavily secured. Not to mention these Canary Island resorts are ridiculously British. Most people that work/visit there are from the UK, so I have no idea where this foreign fear came from. And, if she truly thought the place was a danger, why book it to begin with? Anyway, being 13, I quickly devolve into cursing at her, and I don't hold back at all. I call her a B and a C and tell her to F right off and shove that bedside lamp up her pee. I just get plain nasty with her. I'm not proud of it, and she used my language/attitude as a "this proves I'm right" argument, but I was beyond caring. BTW, this all takes place in about 5 minutes. And just as we really start to go at it, and after she's insulted my mother's parenting numerous times, the bathroom door swings open and out comes my mum. She'd been in there the entire time, and she'd heard everything. At first, I think I'm in trouble for my language, but, to my surprise, my mum doesn't say a word to me. Instead, she goes off at Fiona like I've never seen her go off before. Fiona's pretty much silent through this whole ordeal. From the second my mum starts yelling at her, she buries her head in a book in the corner of the room and doesn't look away for a solid minute or two. Then, Mike, who, understandably, didn't like seeing his mum getting yelled at, suddenly turns to my mum and shoves her. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't try to calm the situation or even just defend his mother with words. He shoves my mum a good few meters across the room. For your information, my mum is an amputee. She only has one arm. Obviously, I would have reacted negatively if she'd had two and he'd shoved her, but I think it definitely added to my reaction. Fiona, upon seeing this, says during the stunned silence, "Thank you, Michael." TBH, at this point all I was running on was pure rage. So, I walk right up to Mike, punch him between the eyes as hard as I can, then listen to Fiona wail as I storm out the room. My mum yells at me as I leave, but when she finds me by the side of the pool 10 minutes later and tells me off for what I've done, she has a guilty grin on her face. The worst thing about this was we still had to share a room for another week. There was obviously no way of reconciling that incident, but Fiona did make Mike apologize to my mother in return for me apologizing to both Fiona and Mike. Funnily enough, Fiona didn't apologize to anyone. Then, Fiona went as far as to suggest Mike should get a free shot at me because I'd punched him, so I suggested I get a free shot at Fiona because Mike had shoved my mum, and another argument broke out. Needless to say, we never spoke to Fiona or Mike again, not even while we shared the room, not on the plane home, not when we collected our luggage. We even got separate taxis back to the street we all lived on. My mum and I did have a great time with the other family though. P.S. I probably haven't played up the entitled parenting part as much, but Fiona couldn't have a conversation with any member of staff without wanting more than we'd paid for. She actually stated she worked hard so she was entitled to the best. She wanted free booze, the most expensive meals, which you had to pay for OBV, etc. TL. Doctor, Mum and I go on holiday with entitled Mum Fiona and son, Mike. Fiona won't let Mike, a 13-year-old, go anywhere without her. Refuses to let him hang with friends I make at the resort. Blows up at me for ditching him when all she allows him to do is sit by the pool as she reads her books. Mike ends up shoving my mum when EM and her are arguing, so I punch him in the face. / generic entitled behavior with staff. Edit. I previously posted this in both entitled people and helicopter parenting before I had enough comment karma for here. Edit 2. This happened 13 years ago. I'm 26 now. Mike actually lives on the same street we grew up on, but inherited the house. Fiona lives elsewhere. No clue. Mike is married. No idea if they have children. My mum drip feeds me gossip as she gets it. Edit 3. This is an edited down version of a chapter from my memoir. I'm an author. If you like these kinds of stories and use Kindle Unlimited, then you can get it for free, although it heavily involves exploration of sexuality at a young age and other NSFW topics, so may not be for you. https://www.amazon.com/thattimesurvived/b07z2j1l7l/ Thank you. Next. So, while watching some juicy EP stories on YT I was thinking, do I have any stories like that? And remembered this pearl. I'm a Swedish guy with type 1 diabetes and I was just walking down a road while on a little trip on my own in Stockholm. Then I check my blood glucose level and lo and behold, my blood glucose is on measuring low, which is about 2 mol/L or less on my scanner. So I take out some dextrosol. Basically it's just sugar with flavor, and start chewing away on a few pieces until I can get something better. But as I'm about to put it away a kid says, "Candy, can I have some?" And I politely decline and explain it is medicine for me. I have diabetes and need sugar to live. His mother chimes in and the conversation goes as follows. Having low blood glucose makes me reason less efficiently and might get angry easily. EM. If you have diabetes you shouldn't eat sugar, you should go on a LCHF diet and you will be cured. Me. That is not how it works. That is lethal to me. EM. You're just saying that because you want your candy for yourself. EK. Mom. I want candy. Me. I can't give you this and I have to go. I need to eat. EM. You will give my baby your candy. I walk off and try to blend into the crowd and then quickly sneak into a cafe. Luckily they didn't follow me and I order a sandwich and a pastry and a coffee and enjoy my fika. Not that long of a story and because of my low blood glucose I had a hard time remembering it even happened. But this is about what happened. Though I bet I looked really pale and stumbled around a bit I still came through unscathed. Thank you. Next. Not native English speaker, so excuse my mistakes. This happened to my mother just last Sunday, so it's quite fresh out of the oven. So as usual a bit of background. I live in Bavaria, Germany, and during Advent it is very common for cities and villages to hold a Christmas market over at least one weekend, and so did my hometown. It is held at our local school, gym and outside the classrooms, and is joined with the annual cribs exhibition, which are made out of wood almost entirely. It was held Saturday and Sunday and my mom was one of the people baking one of the over 25 different cakes and pies that were sold during these 2 days. The place was packed on both days and there was a reservation from a fresh mother that had her child's baptism just an hour before the market would open on Sunday. They called in before the weekend and said they would be around 20-25 people coming in. This mum is the EM of this story. Let's meet the cast. EM. Don't you know who I am? M. My mum. CW. Co-worker. S of my mum. All female. CM. Craftsman. All male. Onto the story. Around 2 p.m. the market opens. The people start pouring in and it was getting clear quite fast that it would be a full house. A mother with a baby, maybe 5 months old, was entering the seating area where my mom and some other women would serve coffee and cake. Following her is a group of over 20 people. Clearly more than 20. She asks for the reserved places and one of my mom's co-workers shows them to their area on the tables. And then it started. Where is the menu? CW. What menu? For the cake. CW. You can come over to the cake buffet to pick out any cake or pie as well as your choice of coffee at our buffet table. Wait, so I have to get up again if I want my cake? That is not what I agreed to. It wasn't. They didn't agree on anything except reserving the seats. Gets up anyways, leaving her newborn on the table mind you, to walk over to the buffet table. She looks for not even a minute until, where is my cake? What cake are you looking for? Or do you want a pie? The cake I wanted. You should have it. Again nothing ordered than the seats. We only have what you see on display. Goes over the kinds of cakes they have, prices are printed here. Same with the coffee. What you mean prices? It should be for free. Mom, we have baconed those cakes for the market, not for you, and no one said you would get free cake or coffee. But it's my baby's baptism. I deserve to get a free cake for that celebration. Miss, if you won't buy, please move along so others can buy cake and coffee. No, I want to speak to the one in charge of this. Now my mum was that happened to take the reservation and therefore is in charge of this. That would be me. I am also the one to take your reservation, which we normally would not even do due to the fact that are quite well visited, as you can see. By that point, the gym was so full of visitors, they could only walk in lines, one line entering and one line exiting the gym halls. This made use that bit of brain she has, but I guess capacities are very limited for her. Okay, then I'll have this cake and a coffee. Very well. Fills a cup while another CW hands her the piece of cake after she paid. Enjoy your stay. I could if you people wouldn't allow these grotesque abominations to be displayed here. Yes, she shouted that last part. This got the attention of the crib makers. Obviously she was badmouthing them quite a bit before she came to the buffet table, as half of them, still 10 to 12 people, stood up from their seats and walked over to the counter. These guys are all craftsmen, and I mean men. No female stood up, and quite skilled and proud of their work. Listen lady, we held our mouths during your initial talk about our cribs, but if you think you can also order us to take down our work, you will find your face on the donkeys and oxes of our cribs next year. How dare you speak to me like that? Don't you know who I am? God bless, I don't. How dare you speak the name of the Lord in such manner? You should burn with your ugly statues in hell. Leave. Now, or we see you out. Cue a lot of hateful language for what the Lord would be ashamed to hear while they threw her and her family out. The poor baby did start to cry from all the commotion, where the father was angry about her, but he followed up. I also got, by some miracle, some pieces of cake that I really like, apple pie if you want to know, and served with the story, it tasted all the world better. Thank you. Next. Not sure if entitled parents or choosing beggars, but I'll post it here. Cast, obvious, EM's friend, me, obvious as well. When I was on my way home from work a couple of days ago, two women approached me and asked me if I could help them. Excuse me, can you help us please? Me, sure, what's the deal? Would you mind buying us some food? We don't have any money. Since I live in a big city, I'm used to poor and homeless people asking me for money or food, and especially during the winter I want to help, but I never give money to anyone, but usually take them to the supermarket and buy them a sandwich or some hot tea. There are lots of reports of organized begging and people who are brought here just to get money from kind strangers. I don't want to support exploitation like this, but I want to help people in need, so I buy some food or tea. When EM and F asked me, I thought they just wanted something they could have for dinner. Me, yeah, something to eat for the two of you. F, well, we need something to cook. You know, she has 4 little children. Me, I'm sorry, but I can't afford paying groceries for 6 people. Not even if 4 of them are children and it's just one meal. EM, it wouldn't be too expensive. Me, I already said no. F, could you give us some money? There is a store where we can buy cheap food. Me, no cash. Can't help you. F. Over there is an ATM. Let's go. Me. No, not like this. I want to help but not if someone demands me to. Bye. Then I left. They followed me in some distance and I loudly heard them complaining. It's always the same. Everyone wants to help but not if you ask for money. F. Yeah, I hate those people. Look at her. She seems to have more than enough, wearing those nice clothes and shoes. I was wearing my dirty and partly torn work clothes, so no idea where that came from if she meant me. I decided to ignore that and hurry to get my bus. At that point I was really angry. They didn't say please even once, but they demanded me to give them money. As I said, I want to help people in need but not if they are disrespectful and demanding. Thank you. Next. This is something a colleague told me about a case he caught earlier today. Police had got made aware of an incident at a local secondary school where a student was supposedly in possession of a knife and had apparently threatened other students with it outside. Obviously police were called and uniformed officers searched the boy, his rucksack and locker. They found an army combat knife in his bag. He was arrested and brought in. Once at the station, we had to wait 3.5 hours for the boy's parents to arrive. He was then interviewed by 2 of my colleagues. Now, most parents upon hearing that their son had been arrested for possession of a knife, their reaction is shock, anger, disappointment. Not these parents. They actually supported and encouraged him to carry a knife, saying that it was a rough neighborhood and that carrying a knife was okay and that if he was sensible enough, then they didn't see the harm. They then tried to play the racial discrimination card, followed by the we committed an illegal search tactic. Finally they even tried the pitiful he's a good boy act, none of which were successful and he was formally charged and will face prosecution. Public service announcement. For those who are stupidly idiotic enough to carry a knife, please don't. Thank you. Next. Obligatory, not on mobile. English is my first language, so if there are any mistakes, please feel free to point them out and make fun of me. So, a little backstory. I have dealt with entitled people my entire life. My grandmother on my father's side is the entitled grandmother in this story. I have so many stories about her. If you enjoy this story, I might post more. Cast. Me. 29F. Entitled grandmother. 77F. Nice dad. 56M. My dad and entitled grandmother's son. And my nephew. 7M. Onto the story. Yesterday, my nephew and my entitled grandmother came over to hang out with my dad and I. My nephew had some homework that he needed to get done, so we went to my bedroom where it was a bit more quiet. Well, being 7 years old and hyped up from seeing his auntie, my nephew had trouble concentrating. When I finally did manage to get him to concentrate on his maths, either entitled grandmother or nice dad would come in to check up on him and break his concentration. So I had to go through that about a half dozen times, but that's not what this story is about. My nephew is rarely allowed in my bedroom, so he was very interested in everything I had lying around. He thought my sonic screwdrivers were lightsabers. It hurt my soul. So he's not concentrating on homework, he's looking around, poking and examining things here and there. He eventually finds a random wiffle ball, you know, those plastic baseballs with the holes in them. Nephew. Auntie, look what I found. Let's play catch. Me. I'll play with you some more as soon as we finish your homework, I promise. But right now I need you to look at number 2, and tell me what 52 minus 14 is. Nephew walks over to where I am, wiffle ball still in hand, when he suddenly stops dead and looks at me with an "uh-oh" expression. Me. Nephew? Nephew holds up his hand and the wiffle ball is perched securely on his pointer finger. Me. I laugh a little. What did you do, nephew? I put my finger in the hole and it got stuck. Me. Still chuckling. Okay, let's see what we can do. I should explain here that my nephew can be very sensitive. I mean, if you use the wrong tone of voice or look at him like you're mad, he'll break down and start crying. It gets much worse if he's scared or in pain. At first, I try just pulling the wiffle ball off of his finger. Nope. Next, I take him into my bathroom and slather hand soap all over the stuck finger and around the ball's hole, and try to slip it off. Nope. Nephew starts to get scared. He's crying loudly, having a panic attack. Nephew, now I'm gonna have to live with this ball on my hand. I'm gonna die with a ball on my finger. I lean down, take him by the shoulders and say his name repeatedly until he focuses on me. Me, nephew. Look at me. I would never let that happen, buddy. Okay, let's rinse off this soap, and we'll go ask grandma and grandpa if they have a better idea. Okay, he sniffles and nods. We go outside to where nice dad and entitled grandmother are talking over nice dad's train set. Entitled grandmother hears nephew crying and rushes over. Entitled grandmother, what is it? What happened to him? Nephew holds up his hand and wails, I'm stuck. Entitled grandmother sighs, like this is a major inconvenience. She calls nice dad's name and we all go to him so he can see. Nephew is still scared and crying, so entitled grandmother decides it's the best time to say, entitled grandmother, don't worry, nephew. We can get it off. We just have to cut off your finger. Nephew wails and his cries start all over again. I give entitled grandmother the look she deserves. Nice dad kneels down to nephew's level. Hey, nephew, look at me. Shh, it's alright, just take a breath and look at me. Nephew is finally able to take a ragged breath. Nice dad smiles and points to nephew's hand. This is pretty funny, isn't it? I catch on and kneel down next to nephew too. Me, hey, nephew, did I tell you that this exact thing happened to me when I was about your age? Guess who saved me? Nephew, Iron Man. He loves Iron Man and Spider-Man. I shook my head, scoffing. Nah, Iron Man doesn't hold a candle to this hero. Want me to tell you who it was? Nephew nods. I point to nice dad. It was your grandpa. Let's help him save you too. Okay, nephew, weakly says. Okay. Nice dad leaves to the garage to find something to cut the plastic with, so we're left alone with entitled grandmother, who has her phone out. Great. Entitled grandmother, nephew, hold up your hand. I want a picture. Nephew, hiding his hand behind his back, cries new. Me, entitled grandmother, come on. Nephew is scared. Now isn't the time for a picture. Entitled grandmother, I don't understand why he won't just let me take a picture. I never had a problem taking pictures of my son. Thankfully, at that moment, nice dad returned, saving me from snapping at entitled grandmother. Nice dad, okay, come here, nephew. I need you to stay super still, okay? Entitled grandmother, yeah, stay still or nice dad will cut your finger off. Nephew whimpers, obviously scared, not understanding that she was joking. I rub nephew's back, trying to comfort him. Don't worry, sweetheart, entitled grandmother is just joking because she doesn't understand that now isn't the time for them. I look at entitled grandmother pointedly as I speak. She gives me a nasty glare. Nephew nods and stays still as a statue while nice dad cuts the plastic, so there's only a ring of plastic around nephew's finger. I notice entitled grandmother snapping pictures with her phone as nice dad worked. Nice dad makes the final cut and pulls the rest of the plastic off nephew's finger. Nephew's mouth drops, and he literally jumps with joy, and gives me a huge hug. Me, laughing, make sure to thank your grandpa, nephew. Nephew runs to nice dad and hugs and thanks him. He's ecstatically happy that he won't have to live and die with a wiffle ball stuck to his finger. Me, alright, nephew, crisis averted, back to maths. As we both are walking back inside, entitled grandmother stops nephew and shows him her phone. Entitled grandmother, look nephew, I got pictures for my book. Nephew, grumbles unhappily, no, grandma. He marches off to open the front door. Entitled grandma, why are you upset now? Nephew, because you took pictures. Happy ending ruined. Me, going to help him open the door. I know, hun. She has a million embarrassing pictures of me and your dad. It's basically a grandparent's job description. We both go inside and I tell him to forget about her. And to help, I gave him a popsicle. Happy ending restored. Later, I try to talk to entitled grandmother about taking pictures when nephew is scared, crying, etc. Entitled grandmother, he just needs to get over it and suck it up. I never had trouble taking pictures of my son. He just needs to let me do what I want. She never was a fan of autonomy. Sorry there was no epic ending, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. Like I said before, I have a million stories of this entitled grandmother, so let me know if you would like to hear more.